Hi everyone, I'm Celine and welcome to the Basic Stitch podcast video. This is not a regular podcast episode, but it's my first ever sewing pattern review video and I hope you enjoy it. So the pattern I'm reviewing is Butterick 5708. I think it is 5708, yes. And it's what I'm wearing right now. I'm going to show you more of it as I go through the dress. This is my first ever finished sewing garment, which makes me so happy. Slightly insecure because it's kind of out of my comfort zone. I don't usually wear red dresses to begin with, and this is like full-on red dress. So this is again a pattern by Butterick, which is one of the big four or a big three, big one company, depending on where you are at. It's Butterick 5708, and I bought this when the website was doing sale. I felt like, wow, this is really cheap. I really have to. I think it was like $3.99 US each, like for Butterick patterns, and I thought that was a really good deal, and I had to grab as many patterns as possible. But I recently just went onto their website again, and I felt like they're always doing sales. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm very new to sewing, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of sewing patterns collectors watching this video, hopefully. Vogue is doing sales all the time as well, except the patterns are slightly more expensive than Butterick. Same for New Look, I think. They seems to be under the same company. Anyway, so I bought this one because it was on sale, and I really like the cover art of the pattern. You know, I think the kind of cover art is only acceptable in 1950s, because if you look closely, the woman on the cover, or the sleeve, what do you call it, the pattern sleeve, her waist is as thick as her neck. So so if you try to sew like something out of the pattern and can't create that kind of look, you know, promised by the pattern sleeve, congratulations, you're a normal person. I think. Yeah. Anyway, first of all, I'd like to say I'm really happy that I found out about this website called Pattern Review online. It has you know, users reviewing all sort of sewing patterns, and I found those reviews really helpful. And before I start to sew or even cut the fabric for this dress, I definitely looked up for reviews. And if you're going to sew this pattern in particular, I highly recommend you going through the reviews on that website. And I'm going to put all the links down below in the description box, like the link to the pattern review website for this particular pattern, and also some blog posts that I relied on. If after watching this video you are interested in purchasing the pattern and sewing this dress. As a pattern, I think it was fine, but there's actually a very specific part of the sewing pattern instruction that is actually wrong, and I found that out by reading reviews online, and also I tried to draw that part out on the paper and treat that paper as a piece of like fabric and try to put them together and see how it works. More of that when I come to that part. So first of all, what I like about this dress is that it's really pretty. It's supposed to be very versatile as well. I'm going to stand up a little bit and let you see if possible. This is how it looks like. You tie these two, you can you tie the front and I can't stand properly. You tie the front and back of the bodice together. You can tie it over here, you can tie it here, you can tie it like this, and this will create more of like a cowl neckline here. And some people, according to the cover sleeve, you can also tie 2 ties under your armpit, so it's like a tube dress. Also, an alternative is you tie one here and another here, so it's like a slanted neckline. The bodice is separated into can I say two parts? I would say this is the upper bodice, and this part is what we call, what I call, lower bodice, and they are cut on bias. This belt doesn't come with the pattern, but I'm just gonna show you what it looks like without the pattern, without the belt, and I really don't like the look. This is how it looks like. So it's a very, very full dress. It's not a circle dress, it's a square gathered skirt. So you can see a lot of gathers here. Okay, and I'm not sure if I just don't like the look of a bodice going straight to gathers, or this is just a little bit too big for my waist. But to be honest, I wouldn't call this too big. I mean, it's a little big, but I need to leave some space for me to eat, right? So I think it's probably okay, but I just really can't stand it without the look of a belt. There are patterns where you have like, you know, bodice and then a faux belt and then gather. That would work for me, I believe. But because this doesn't have that, I kind of have to sew a belt. Just basically wing it using the same fabric. Oh, this is so ugly. But whatever. Do you get what I mean? If I have a bow on my waist and then there are like two ties here, that's a little bit too much. So if I'm doing anything, I'm going to just bring it to the back. But still, that looks a little bit too girly. And I'm not a very girly girl, so I'm not sure what I need to do about it. Probably, if I'm ever going to do this again, which I doubt I will probably make like a belt with hooks and eyes so that I don't have to tie a bow. But it's a completely personal thing. I think a lot of people who have sewn this dress would agree with me that this is a rather straightforward pattern, and that is coming from a complete beginner. But after reading reviews online, I did switch the order of how I was going to assemble this dress. And because the bodice is self-lined, is that self-lined? It's lined with a fabric, like identical fabric. And the reason why that was necessary is because if you're not lining it with identical fabric, half of the ribbon here, the tie, might look different. So yeah, I did the lining. I finished the complete bodice before I put the bodice together with the skirt, if it makes sense to you, because this is a huge skirt. I don't want to put the bodice and the skirt together and then go back to deal with the lining of the bodice. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And also, if you are sewing this pattern, please remember that the pattern has it wrong for how you're going to sew the lining together. Basically, the instructions simply tells you to sew the lining the way you sew the, I don't know what you call this, like exterior fabric, which is not gonna work because they are not gonna be identical. What you need to do is you have to sew them the other way around in order that they fit with this outer exterior fabric. Does that make sense to you? I mean, it's like if you read the blogs and reviews I'm going to link down below, that will be quite apparent. If you can't visualize how it works because you are like beginner like me, what I did was I basically have a piece of paper and I wrote like wrong side, right side, or like front fabric, back bodice, front bodice, back bodice, cut them out and try to assemble them to see how it makes sense to me. Yeah, now we go to the problems with this pattern. First of all, like what I said just now, the bodice were cut on bias. This is to allow us the kind of stretch we need to tie things here and here, to kind of maneuver it a lot. I guess I'm not sure if we can still do the same thing if these are all like cut on grain. But the problem with that is it's kind of unflattering. I see people saying it flattens the chest, the boobs, but some people say it's too big, so I'm not sure what happens over there. So when you're sewing this, definitely make a what do you call it, muslin. Yeah, and I did, and I think I'm okay with the fact that this part is cut on bias because I have a fairly small chest. Like, it's just smaller than average people, I believe. So if I sew in the smallest size, that would usually be not a problem whatsoever. But the problem is the lower torso. It's I don't know, can you see that kind of creases? Which I think is normal, of course, definitely normal, but then it's not very flattering for most people. I just wish, I'm not sure, okay, I'm not a pattern maker, and this is only my first garment, so I'm not sure if I know how fabric works. But is it possible to have this part, upper torso, cut on bias, but the lower torso cut on grain? Is that possible? Because I think the only reason why you want to cut this part on bias was to allow the maneuvering of these ties, right? And I don't think we need those like stretch around here. One blog post I read, the sewist actually put some interfacing or interlining basically to add more, not bulk, but support to this part so that it doesn't crease that way, and you know, it forms like a flatter and more flattering look over here. Now it just looks like no matter how I iron this skirt, it just looks like I just grab it out of a bag. Is it true to size? I remember when I sewed this, I picked the smallest size for my bust, and then I graded slowly to one size bigger for my waist because, oh yes, it's not true to size, because I remember my waist is definitely 1 to 2 size bigger than the smallest size of the pattern. I don't know why. I cut one size bigger. So I used like smallest size for my chest and second smallest size for my waist. That should be quite tight for me because according to my true measurement, I should probably sew from the third or 3.5 size for my waist. But I didn't do that because I tried on muslin and second size, or even, second size looks okay. But after finishing it, I feel like the second size is a bit too big, and I could probably do away with no grading, like using the smaller size for both my bust and my waist. Long story short, I think if you sew this, definitely try on a muslin first, but in general, I think you can go down a size or two. As a record, if you are interested, I think my bust is 31 inches after wearing my normal bras, like non-padded ones. And my waist is 25.5. And one thing I think you might want to kind of pay attention, again, you have to make a muslin for this as well, is when I look at other people's finished project, the torso usually looks kind of long, which worried me quite a bit because my torso is not very long. I'm 164 centimeter, not very tall, and when I look at my body proportion, my waist is definitely on my torso is definitely on a shorter side. So I keep moving forward because I want to see if I'm recording. So I was kind of worried because I don't want the torso to look very long. But after finishing the muslin, confusingly, it's not too long on me. It's like kind of normal for me. So that's really confusing. And I also don't like the fact that this dress will not look good on me without an extra belt. And I've seen people wearing this dress with like leather belt or whatever kind of belt, and I think that might be the only way that it looks less awkward. Also, I don't like gathers. I only learn about that after sewing this. It's not like I don't like to sew gathers. Of course, I don't love sewing it either, but I definitely prefer the look of a circle skirt to a gathered skirt. I guess it's just more elegant and kind of more formal. I'm not sure. I mean, circle skirt is more elegant and formal for me, which is also a problem with this dress. it, it's an occasional wear. I don't think I can wear this out on the street every single day or even once a week. Maybe that's because I'm in Hong Kong. It's not very casual, but at the same time, it's not very formal. And I think it has to do with the fact that it's a gathered skirt. I'm not sure if I'm not sure if I'm alone with that, but I think a gathered skirt is not very formal. I mean, if you're just going to a party, it's probably fine. A Christmas party, whatever party, is probably fine, but not like ball type of formality, which is not a big problem. And the last point, probably one of the last point I'm going to talk about, is that I like the kind of variety these ties give me. And I know a lot of people are attracted to the varieties, the possibilities, the potentialities. Is that even a word? Potentiality? That this pattern gives them. But I would say if you have a fuller bust, maneuvering this to do all sort of different magic is not very easy. I'm kind of lucky because I'm very flat-chested. But if you're not very flat-chested like me, I'm not sure how easy that's gonna be. I gather that opinion online. So this is how I like to do it. And it's not only just because I like to do it this way, it's because it just looks more normal when I do this. One of the reasons I like to have the knot slightly to the front is because I want to make sure the back is not super spacious. Is that a word? Like, now you can see it's coming out a little, but if I can tie it better, it might go smoothly over my back that way. But that's not a very huge problem if I'm just covering it with my hair. Also, it keeps this part straight as well. An alternative look is when you tie it right on the shoulder and it will give a cowl, which is not a big problem if you're using a lighter fabric. My fabric is like cotton-ish. I don't know if you can tell the weight on the video, but it's not like very lightweight, but it's not extremely heavy either. So if it's lighter with a little bit of stretch, even, I don't know, the cowl might look better, but I've read that people say it kind of reveals a little bit too much. It might reveal more than you are ready to reveal, okay? And I'm going to show you how it looks alternatively. So this is kind of what it looks when I have, if I tie it over my shoulder on one side and then under my arm on another, this is how it looks. It might look okay to you right now, but the problem with it is in the pattern, it would actually tell you where your nipple is supposed to be at. But if you do anything other than like my normal way of tying it, the nipple spot unavoidably move to weird places, and it might not be very noticeable, but to me, it just feels a bit weird. Because this part kind of get like twisted. I'm not sure. It's okay now. Problem though. Look at that. What is this? Is it possible for me to tie in a way where it looks less awkward? Is it possible? Maybe I shall tie it tightly. Or maybe I should like put a hook and eyes here, but even so, there's gonna be like a awkward hole here. Some people really don't like the fact that there is a knot under the underarm, so what we can do is to bring it to the front a little. Okay, and this is one way to do it. I'm literally doing this in front of the camera, and hopefully this keeps classy. Okay, another thing I can do is to tie another knot here and turn it into a tube dress. Immediately, I can say I really need to have really good posture with this, otherwise, again, I risk looking like a potato sack. I'm now trying to tie my, what is this? Oh, the ribbon. I'm now trying to tie this a little bit tighter so that it might look more flattering. Well, yeah, I don't know. The problem is, like what I said, if you pull this bodice up and tie it here, it kind of kept this part straighter. But if you tie like the knots underarm, there isn't anything to pull this fabric straight, so they kind of like crunch up here. These on bias little thingy, they just don't know what they want to do here, so yeah. So if, like what I said, if I tie the knots on my shoulder, right on my shoulder, it creates this kind of like cowl look. And because my fabric is not very, very soft, it looks kind of awkward. But if you are using like a way softer fabric, it might have this, like, I saw on Instagram someone sew it so beautifully with a thinner fabric. It looks like, it gives this like Marilyn Monroe vibe that I will never ever be able to pull off anyway. And let me show you the length of the dress. How do I show it to you? Maybe step on this? It's quite long, but I usually wear this, not usually, I wore it once in my life, and I wore a pair of heels, so it's kind of fine. But if I'm going to wear it on a picnic day, I'm not sure when that will ever happen, I'm definitely going to shorten the length a little. Right now I'm following the length prescribed by the pattern, which I don't think it's a problem. Some people like it shorter, but I think, you know, in 1950s, at least at the beginning of 1950s, when this new look was introduced by Dior, it was definitely long. It's like supposed to be shin long. Shin long? I don't know what's the term for that, but yeah, it's not supposed to be short. Oh well. I'm running out of breath, I don't know why. So bottom line for this pattern, it's a much criticized pattern, but it worked for me, mainly because it just happens that my body figure fits the kind of block this pattern is designed for. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I'm quite small busted. Most pattern is going to work for my bust as long as they are not too roomy anyway. So that is the review of this pattern. It's Butterick 5708, and I hope I don't have to record this again. I mean, I don't have to record this for the second time. I hope I like the footage. This is my first time reviewing a sewing pattern. It's not gonna be very professional. I just hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, until next time.